Hello, hello, all those beautiful faces. My name
Yeah.
is Stephanie Edmonds. Welcome to Teaching Liberty. To live free, you have to think free. And tonight, we are going to dive into the most recent pro-Palestine versus pro-Israel news, you could say. If you've been
hmm
following along, I have a bunch of videos on this topic. So after this show, I highly encourage you to go over to my
hmm
channel. Subscribe, of course, if you're not, and check those out. But tonight, I am here with my friend Silvio, also known as a sage called Sunshine. He's from
Talk
around the
to.
town, actually. Been knowing him for
hmm
a while. So thank you so much, Silvio, for joining me.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much, Steph. Over the years, we're good friends. We were old friends, old buds, old pals. So I'm
Yep.
happy to be on here. We've always had these kind of conversations in real life, so it's like I'm excited to do it.
Yeah, and I saw you a few weeks ago now over at the trampoline park with our
hmm
kiddos,
hmm
and we just started chatting. And this subject of Palestine and Israel and Zionists and these pro-Palestine protesters came up, and I was like, hey, let's have this conversation on my podcast.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you coming through
Thank you.
and having this conversation with me. Like you
Yeah.
said, these are the types of things we've been talking about for years. Like, we didn't just become um, pro-Palestine supporters, you could say, or anti-Zionists, or yeah, I don't
hmm
really like any of these terms, but
I don't like them either.
for
We're
lack of a
I feel
better,
like we're humanists. We're people
right?
who just like the right thing to happen. You know.
Exactly. But we've been having these conversations for years on this topic and many others, and so yeah, we're here tonight. And our question of the night is: are the pro-Palestine protests, are they a net positive or are they a net negative?
Mm,
So I have a few different things lined up here. Some articles from the Free Press, some clips from Twitter. I have some stuff from Trump, and I mean, we all know what Biden's stance is. We've seen it
mm,
full unfold over the last 7, 8 months now. So
right.
before we get into any of that, just give me your quick take on this situation in general, and then specifically on how you're feeling about the pro-Palestine protests.
Well, I'm definitely on the more Palestine side of things. I feel like this conflict, it's pretty obvious, like what's going on, and how this came about. It's all everything is out there for people to consume. The protests, in my opinion, are not beneficial at all. I feel like they're guided. Like, if something has been happening for years and then all of a sudden the whole media and everybody's talking about it all of a sudden, where years before that, if you talked about it, you would be ridiculed and said to get out of here. There's gotta be more like oh, this is just talked about because we're guiding it in a certain way to be ineffective, like always. Like, this is politics. It's always everything we rally for is always ineffective. So I think this is another one of those. Well,
All right, well, we'll get into it, but just
yeah,
overall, you think, okay, maybe some of the protesters out there have their hearts in the right place.
right.
Um, some of them probably less knowledgeable than others. I mean, we've all seen the hot take videos where kids are like, "What river? What sea?" Right? Like,
Yeah,
they don't
yeah.
really know too much, but they're out there rallying for what they believe is the right cause. And then I've certainly talked to people who have plenty of knowledge on the situation, and sometimes they're the activists. Usually they are the people who are more like me, who kind of consider themselves part of this like anti-woke crew, and now they find themselves more aligned with the left, who was like the woke side of things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, like you said, there's the media controlling our conversations, and then I'm also suspect of the type of infiltration and where the funding is coming for these protests and who's directing them, and these are all things that we have to keep in our mind. But I wanted to start us off with a clip, because I do think a lot of what's going on here is media perception. and what we're being shown and what we're not seeing. And one of the outlets that is doing a lot of coverage of this is the Free Press by Barry Weiss, who was one of these anti-woke people who is Jewish. And as soon as 10/7 happened, they've been focusing a lot on this. And of course, she's very pro-Israel. One of her reporters, Olivia Reingold, has been going out and covering these reports. And here's a video clip from recently that she went out there.
I've been surrounded. You're not being surrounded. I'm not being surrounded. You're not being surrounded. You're choosing. I'm saying to you, I've been asked to leave on public property. She can leave.
No, your path is clear. Your path is clear. The path is clear.
Free Palestine, you're killing me.
Palestine. Free Palestine. Free Palestine.
All right, so you can see here, this reporter is at a pro-Palestine. She's calling it an anti-Israel mob. And she's saying, they're surrounding me. They're not letting me go. And she filed a police report, I guess. So what's your initial reaction to this reporter and how she approached this scene? Like, you know, do you buy it? Is there something else going on here? What's your reaction?
So I think the reporter was genuinely surrounded. However, I think the reporter's intention was to take advantage of what we spoke about earlier, the guidance of like, this is how you support Palestine. So do this, and this is how you show your support. And the reporters know this. So they go and be like, oh my God, they're so crazy. And it's really, it muddles down the message of, are we really trying to save kids here? Or what are we really trying to do? So if the point is, that's why I really like what Trump said about, even though, you know, I'm not a Trump supporter per se, but about we want to prevent people from dying. If that's the goal, then we gotta just move a little bit more wiser. It doesn't, you don't have to be super informed, but of course, you know, we have to just be wiser in what we're doing.
Well, if you see a reporter coming in like that, and she's looking to write a story about how crazy you guys are and how you're not going to let her move freely or whatever, then just stay away from her. Don't give her a story. I mean, I've been to a lot of different demonstrations and rallies, and to me, this doesn't seem abnormal. You know, if you're going to go to a place where there's a bunch of people supporting a cause and you're against the cause, and then you go into the crowd, yeah, you're going to be surrounded. So it seems like she's trying to find a story here. I mean, right underneath it, you can see Z Squirrel, which, I mean, I think for an independent guy who's just on, or it might be a lady, who knows, on Twitter, this account puts out interesting information. Sometimes they can be a little bit intense the way the person describes it, but in terms of really having threads that track the things, I think they're really good. But that's neither here nor there, because this is exactly the event that I was thinking of, was when they did this thing and it was run by the Free Press, where this oh wait, hold on, I'm not showing you guys, sorry, I forgot to put it up. Boom, right here. Okay, so there's this account here. Trying to make it bigger. So where they claim to get stabbed in the eye. This girl right here, she's a college student, and she claimed to have gotten stabbed in the eye. And really, it turned out that this person just passing by, it was like a whole line of people was flying the flag, and like maybe it got her eye or something. But again, she was putting herself in the middle of the situation. And when I heard stabbed in the eye, it was like, oh my God, it's like a knife. Like somebody got, you know, a knife in the eye, and like, this is horrible. But it turns out it was like the rounded end of a flag. And that's what I see this the equivalent to. It's like crying wolf But again, if you're not used to being at rallies, if you've never been in this type of situation and you have a bias that predisposes you to the pro-Palestinian people being violent and mob-like, then you're just going to believe it. So, have you ever been to like rallies or protests, or what's your history with activism?
Oh, I think we got disconnected for a little bit.
Oh, okay. I was just asking you, what is your history with activism, going to rallies? Like, do you have any experience going to protests and seeing what the dynamics are like down there? Because for me, I think that if you don't have that dynamic, like any like real life experience to sort of compare this to, and you're just seeing videos that are very limited, you know, you're only seeing what they show you, it can be taken very different. So what's your experience with that?
I've had a lot of experience going to protests. I've also liked a very good documentary by I think it's by Press for Truth called Into the Fire. It's about the G20 protests in Toronto. I think it was 2007. And it's really incredible how these things work and how, like I said, they take advantage of it's both sides. Like earlier, I think I got disconnected.
Uh-oh, you just dropped again.
But I was
Okay,
kind of
there you
like
go.
pandering content. This is for the pro-Israel. This is pandering for the pro-Israel people. Like, oh look, you know, it's just like both sides are making content to pander, and I think this is not a case of the person didn't know what was going to happen. I think I'm kind of more on where you're getting at, where the person did, and in a protest, you know what if you go to a sporting event. And let's say you're at a Yankees game and you're the only guy with a Boston jersey on, and you're talking smack, and you're going in the crowd deliberately like, ha, I got a box, you know, this is what's going to happen.
Right.
So I think they know. I think, and again, I'm more on the middle of everything where I'm pro-Jewish. Shout out to my Jewish people out there. And I'm pro-Palestine. I'm not pro-Hamas, you know, and or terrorism or anything of that nature. But I'm like a real realist kind of person. And I understand that if you look at things of how they're going on and how they've been going, it's like, oh, obviously this is happening at this point in time. So there's no ceasefires. It's not going to work. I don't think. Calling for that. I
Uh-oh.
Are we getting disconnected?
Yeah, well, you're good now. It's like every once in a while you'll just like drop off for a second.
Okay.
So yeah. But
Yeah.
you're back. You're back. You were saying you don't think that a ceasefire is gonna work. So I want to play a video that shows now like sort of it's not exactly the opposite, but it's one of those clips that you can say is like showing a better light to the pro-Palestine side and not such a good light to like she may or may not be a Jewish woman kind of screaming in their faces. So let's do that, and then we'll come back. I want to talk about what you do think would be something more realistic for these protesters to call for. But let's go ahead and watch this video, kind of showing the opposite perspective. So this one is going to be this video. Boom.
This is great, by the way. I like doing this. This is fun.
Yeah, man, you know, and like I'm sitting here, I'm doing the screen shares myself, so forgive me if it takes a second to find things. Awesome. You know, I'm working on getting a producer.
It's concise though. We're looking at every side right now.
Yeah, so here's a video from the other side. Let's give this one a play.
from Israel. Our people come from Israel. You have from your people.
Zionism is a political movement which is causing bloodshed.
What are you talking about? That's where our family is from. I'm from Israel. How can you hold that flag?
This is because the actions of the Zionist people, they are responsible for the bloodshed.
That's where ancestors.
We lived in a beautiful peace.
Flag is that? You say that you're a Jew.
We lived in a beautiful peace with Palestinian people for hundreds of years.
How can you say that you're not a Jew? You're not a Jew. How dare you?
When Zionism came in, they caused the bloodshed. They caused rivers of bloodshed.
How can you say that you're Jewish? How can you shame your own people?
Who is a Jew?
We're Jews.
We're all Jews here. He was against Judaism.
What?
We're all Jews here.
Yeah, so how are they saying that?
Because they believe in God.
Jewish, I'm standing it.
I don't want that.
That's our country.
The Talmud says not our country like that.
That is our country. How dare you say that about our own people? What's wrong with you?
Both are Jewish.
Wow.
You're being special, You're being special, What the fuck is on TV now?
I don't do it.
I'm Jewish too.
Where the fuck is
All right, so you get the point. I don't think this one is as like a gotcha one in the other in the way that other one is. I don't think that it's just harder to find, I think, on that side.
I think that was beautiful, actually, to see Jewish people out there just saying, you know what, we believe in God, you know, and having that representation, because I think the muddling is being used, like being pro-Palestine somehow is being pro-Hamas, and being pro-Jewish and being pro the Jewish faith somehow being pro-Zionism. And I think that was great that those guys went out there, and those women went out there to represent. Lady there, a little bit unfortunate, but like my name is Sunshine, man. Like, you know, I understand being confronted potentially with the reality that we made roots somewhere. How are you gonna say my roots aren't? You know, I went and traveled here. I grew up here. You know, there's a certain connection to Israel and Tel Aviv. And some of the pro-Palestine side is like, basically, you know, that shouldn't even be existing. So
do you think that that's the most common element, though, of the pro-Palestine side? I'm not saying that there's nobody who's saying those types of things. I'm not saying there's nobody who is being more like pro-Hamas or pro-Hezbollah. Like, I've certainly seen those flags, like Al-Qassam flags or the Hezbollah flags. But also I have to question, like, are those people actually with the protesters, or are those infiltrators? Like, I think we have to have a little bit more of a dynamic talk about that, and there hasn't really been any investigation into those things. But I mean, it's a protest, especially when it's a massive protest movement. I mean, I remember when we were doing the anti-mandate stuff, and there was always people, and our protests weren't nearly as big as this movement. There was always people who would come out who was like, kind of wish you weren't here. Like, you're not making us look so great. You know, we don't need that type of behavior here. So I think that there's always going to be at least some of that. People who aren't representing the cause in the way you want them to be. But is that representative of the pro-Palestine movement in general? I personally haven't seen that. I don't know. What do you think?
No, I mean, yes and no. I think in my personal experience in life, I've seen that people just feel like Israel is conquering Palestine, and that should have never happened. And the reasons behind it aren't good enough, you know, to certain people.
Yeah. Well, I actually am of that opinion, right? I am of the opinion that the way that Zionism came into Israel, and I mean, if you look at the early writers, they were openly colonists. They called it a colony, they called themselves settlers. I don't think that's in dispute, but I'm also a realist, like you said. And I think that we have to make some sort of deal based on the facts on the ground now.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
whether it's a two-state solution or one-state solution. I heard somebody talking about a three-state solution, like having the West Bank and Gaza be separate and then having Israel. So like I'm open to a lot of these solutions, but I also think that Israel doesn't really want to have a solution, and they want to keep changing facts on the ground until they've ethnically cleansed enough of the Palestinians out of there that they can just have a greater Israel that is majority Jewish.
Yeah.
So I think that sort of, again, they do this conflation thing where they say that, well, somebody like me who might express, yeah, I don't think that the state of Israel should have really ever been founded. I think that it was founded on false pretenses in a lot of ways that wasn't right. But also, here we are, and we have to come up with some sort of deal. And I would rather it happen sooner so that it doesn't continue on that legacy than worse. Yeah,
Mm.
go ahead.
I think people like the Zionist side of the argument. I think they don't have any interest to have those kind of conversations that you're talking about, because those kind of conversations, you have to start somewhere with a conversation. Like, is this possible? And I like where you're thinking. Some might say, no, we can't do that because this is totally a morally unethical thing that's happening, and that should just go away. But at least let's start talking about it. We can even say, let's just put a transition on the ground. Like, how can we transition Israel somewhere else? Not saying that's what I want to happen, but let's be free to talk instead of making every conversation so divisive. So, you know,
Hmm.
so
So
yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I have an article here. It's also from the Free Press. I was pretty happy to see them put out what I would consider a more pro-Palestine. I mean, it's a Palestinian perspective, and I feel like they've been pretty one-sided. Now, of course, the one that they choose is the one sort of denouncing the pro-Palestine movements. But I think the article's interesting, and it really gets to the heart of this issue that we've been talking to about the effectiveness of the movement, whether it's a net good or a net negative. And so the author is Ahmed Fawd Al Khatib. I think I'm saying that right, hopefully. But the title is Israel Killed 31 of My Family Members in Gaza. The pro-Palestine movement isn't helping. Over the last 2 decades, Western activists have only made things worse for my people. And it's not a very long article, so I'm going to go ahead and read through it. It says, the conflict in Gaza has put my family through hell. A few weeks ago, I flew into Egypt to help my brother's wife and their 4 children flee Gaza to safety in the UAE. It was just one day before the Rafah border closing on May 7th, so we were cutting it close. My brother opted to stay behind. He's a senior program manager for a British NGO in Gaza, similar to the American Red Cross, and he felt that without him, the whole operation might fall apart. But we all agreed that it was time for his family to get out. Our family's home in Gaza City was hit by an Israeli airstrike a week into the war, injuring several uncles and a cousin on my dad's side, killing 2. My brother's family walked away from the rubble with minor injuries, but since then they've been displaced 8 times as they've made their way from Gaza City in the north to Khan Yunis and eventually reaching Rafah, where my mom's family house has always been effectively my second home. That home was hit by an airstrike in thing. Let's see. I don't know why it went. All right, let me make it a little smaller so I can. Okay, here we go. Let's see. That home was hit by an airstrike in mid-December, just weeks before they arrived in Rafah. The attack killed 29 of my relatives. All 5 of my aunts and uncles perished, as did most of my cousins. Those who made it out had the grim task of digging through the wreckage, pulling out the burnt and disfigured bodies of family members. Almost everyone has known the pain of losing a beloved relative, but so many lost in a blink of an eye, all because they were bystanders in a bloody conflict they wanted no part of. It's almost unbearable. Whenever I share the story, people must assume I am consumed with rage, eager to revenge on those responsible. I must despise all Israelis and consider them my sworn enemies. Despite my deep frustrations and resentment with the Israeli government's actions in the ongoing war, I don't. If anything, I'm more critical of some pro-Palestinian activists, many of whom are making things worse, putting the people they claim to defend in increasing danger. In fact, I'd argue that some aren't interested in the well-being of Palestinians, or aren't at all interested. And I think that this paragraph here, like, I don't know, like, again, this person's perspective, they're Palestinian, but I don't know how you could be more angry at protesters who don't really have any power, who are essentially just kids in the street, than you could be at, I guess, Israel's government. Like,
I
I'm not,
I
I don't
can
know.
I can understand that because it's kind of how I'm thinking. It's like there's a way to resolve the problem, but that you have the power to resolve it. So I have to be mad at you. Being mad at the government, the Israeli government, is going to do nothing for me. But the college kid that is willing to fight for me, willing to speak up for me, if they're directed in a way that is more accurately involved in the freedom of Palestine, I think that, when you see your savior just going crazy, you're gonna be frustrated at them over the people who are oppressing you. You have
Maybe.
a chance over time. Every time America could have stepped in to stop this issue, every time, and this guy experienced a new death. Every time he moved somewhere else, okay, and then we're here, and the propaganda machine of Israel is working. I'm going to say of Zion is working, and it's working its wonders, and it's it's concealing this conflict for years and years and years, and now here we are, y'all know, and now we're falling for the same trick. I can understand his
Yeah, but do
frustration.
those kids on the street have power? Like, I feel
They
like
don't.
our
They do.
government has power.
They do. They do have power because I feel like, to answer your question from earlier, the only way to address this issue is to address it at the root. How is it that this is able to be done? How is this even possible? Any other country, why? Because the influence is great. Zion's influence is incredibly great. You say something about certain things, you will be canceled. Your bank account will be terminated. I never seen that in my life before. In life,
Right. So what does that have to do with the kids on the street though, right? Like, shouldn't you be mad at the Israeli government and their lobby?
I'm sure he's mad at the Israeli government. I'm pretty sure he's mad at the Israeli government, but the problem is the person that can help is kind of not helping,
I guess you're right.
you know?
So he goes
So
on to
the thing
say,
is, every
yeah, go
time they
ahead.
don't help, a person in his life dies. So then he's like, you can help me right now and stop this nonsense right now, but you're choosing to fall for the same propaganda no matter what. Even the freedom fighting is like propaganda. It's like
Right.
Coney
Well, I don't
2012.
know if they could. I don't know if they could help them right now, but I guess they could be more effective, right?
Right.
They
So
could be
I
more effective.
understand his sentiment, but obviously this man lost a lot of people, so his articulation might be more in the irrational sense. So I
Right.
understand where you're coming from as well, of like his anger, the anger part, the frustration part can be over here, but the anger part is displaced
Right.
because I would be angry at the people actually killing my family.
Right. He does say, was I angry at Israel? I was furious. I mourned my friends, and a part of me wanted vengeance. But everything I was told as a kid, every plan for retaliation that I heard adults and older boys discussing never made sense to me. Wouldn't violence just lead to more violence and more dead children? What sense did it make for the Palestinian people to fight the Israelis, who clearly had far more military strength than we did? I was a preteen who knew almost nothing about the world, but I knew everything I was being told about the revolution wouldn't work. Now, I will say that he doesn't include the part where the Palestinians do try peaceful resistance, because they haven't just done violent resistance. It wasn't just the intifadas. There has been many different peaceful different strategies. I think like the most well-known one is where in 2014, I believe it was, in Gaza, they all walked up to the border wall, right? No weapons, just walked up to the wall, and the Israeli army shot kids in the knees and all those types of things. There's been other ones as well. I know that there's what's the one? Boycott, BDS, boycott, divest, and sanction movement. And of course, that's always painted as like, oh, well, if you do that, you're supporting terrorism or whatever. So it's also been denounced. So I think that he's leaving some of these things out. It hasn't always been about military. There has been peaceful things. I also think that this leaves out the fact that there have been successful uses of asymmetric warfare, right? If we want to bring it to white people versus white people, the Irish versus the British, right? Again, I'm not saying that those tactics are ones that I would personally use. They're not ones that I think are great. They were horribly violent and lots of innocent people died, but they were successful against a much, much stronger, larger power. So, yeah.
To his defense, though, I think he was speaking of his personal experience of what he heard growing up. And the thing about it is, I always think over the years, I've always thought about what would it be like to actually be there, and to be a Palestinian man and hear, he's choosing not to seek revenge. But there's a bunch of other people's children and babies and wives and daughters that were just murdered around. And those voices are stronger than the peaceful voices. Those are probably more because if your place is at war, the more fringe are probably going to seep to the top. And I think to avoid falling into those traps is pretty I would say hard to do. And also trying to do peaceful protests, the thing about it is there's probably people in Palestine that understand that that's not, the propaganda machine is so strong that what is that really going to do? The only revolution that will do anything is a violent one. But a violent one, the only acceptable violent one that can happen is going one way, because there's no Israeli Hamas, there's no Israeli terrorist
Some
group.
people would consider the IDF as an organization raining terror down upon the Palestinians.
Of course, but they're not considered a terrorist group. Hamas,
right, because they have F-16s, and if you drop bombs from F-16s, you're totally not a terrorist, right?
So how is that possible? Through propaganda. Somebody's controlling the narrative. If it doesn't even make it so drastically does not make any sense that it has to be a joke, and it has to be a joke that's being played on us.
I'm trying to laugh about it, right?
Yeah, I feel you.
So this is the part that also is another reason why I think the Free Press ran this, is because it's almost advocating for the the Palestinians to like self-cleanse the land. So he says, there, I realized I had no future in Gaza, so I worked relentlessly to get out. In 2005, when I was 15, I boarded a plane for California as part of a high school cultural exchange program. By the time it ended a year later, the 33-day war was raging, and I was unable to enter Gaza through Egypt after the border closure. With some help from amazing human rights advocates and friends in the Bay Area, I applied for political asylum in the United States. The very day of my asylum interview, June 14, 2007, Hamas violently took over the Gaza Strip and ejected the Palestinian Authority. In the meantime, I finished high school and obtained a bachelor's degree. I also became involved in pro-Palestinian activism in the Bay Area. Initially, I was enamored. I volunteered with them. I marched with them. I gave them money. I attended dozens of rallies, went to countless university events, and participated in educational conferences and advocacy campaigns. Okay, including BDS. So he says he was a part of that. But that BDS is mostly outside of Gaza. It's not, and the West Bank. It's not inside. So that's a little bit, different. He didn't highlight any of the nonviolent actions taken by Palestinians actually in Gaza and the West Bank. He says, I met and worked with intelligent, sincere, and highly committed individuals who inspired me. I also met a lot of idealists who were too stubborn to realize that all of their all or nothing belief system by which all Zionists are bad and all Palestinians are angels isn't just self-defeating, but does an active disservice to the very people they claim to champion. So, I mean, I'm sure there are people like this, but I mean, maybe when you're in the rage of it. I remember when I was doing my anti-mandate activism, we could get pretty hardcore and be like, no, all of the things need to go right now. All the mandates need to just go right now. Whereas, unfortunately, they can, in one swoop of a pen, they can take all of our rights away. But to get them back, it has to be a step-by-step process. But even if you have that rhetoric, I don't know. Anyways, so as my asylum application progressed, some of my activist friends accused me of being a traitor. They told me I should move back to Gaza and defend the land for my people. I should resist the Zionist plot to empty Gaza of all Palestinian inhabitants. Never mind that returning there would only put my life in danger. If I truly cared, they told me, I would be on the front lines fighting to destroy our common enemy. Yeah, go ahead.
I feel like, in a way, it's a wrap. Palestine is good. I'm sorry, Israel's gonna do what it's gonna do. It's gonna happen, unless the consciousness of people kind of get woken up now, like literally right now. We're gonna do this like what we're doing with Fauci right now. We're interviewing him after the fact. Everything happened after the fact, but they're gonna do what they're going to do. So him being there is just basically another Palestinian dead, especially a guy that went through that, 31 family members. He don't gotta be over there. He did. I hate to laugh, but he did what he needed to do. Come here, figure out how to attack the problem at its roots, which is through what I believe the propaganda machine and the ownership of every sect or every construct of media, whether it's social media, whether it's movies. There's certain things you cannot say in movies about Zionism. You just can't. You'll get like that lady. You see that lady feels like the lady that was screaming. She feels like this is like, you're not Israel. You're not Jewish if you don't support Israel. So there's people in Hollywood with a lot of money that feel the same way, and people in the news media with a lot of money that feel the same way. So unless our consciousness wakes up and says, you know what, in order to really help this issue, we have to see through all the propaganda on both sides and see it for what it is and see what can we do then. But until then, this is gonna happen. And him being out of Palestine, he doesn't have to be there to fight for the freedom of Palestine.
So, I agree with a lot of what you're saying. I'm a little bit more optimistic, I guess. Not, I don't want to say, I feel like optimistic is probably too strong of a word. But I have a little bit more
Open.
hope. Yeah, I
Yeah,
have a little bit
I'm
more
open
hope.
to. I'm open to. I'm open to.
I think like the videos like we saw at the beginning with this woman claiming that she's being surrounded, and I don't know, it's pretty, to me it seems exactly like a lot of these videos that during like the BLM protests that people so
Yeah,
easily were like, oh,
absolutely.
come on. Like, that's like, that wasn't really racist that this person saw. So this reeks of desperation to me, right? It
Hmm.
reeks of them not being ahead of the narrative, that people are waking up. I mean,
Yeah.
the TikTok thing, there could be multiple reasons why they want to ban TikTok. I'm sure the other platforms, I'm sure Instagram and X and Facebook and all these other, more American based Silicon Valley apps
Hmm.
would love for TikTok not to be there and be a competitor. So that can be part of it. But there was also a lot of representatives basically openly saying like, oh, people are getting too much pro-Palestine content on TikTok. Um, so I'm
Yeah.
not so confident that they have a handle on the narrative to the extent that a publication like Free Press makes it seem. Now, of course, social media has a way of putting us in our bubbles, right? And this is the content you're fed to feed the narrative in your mind that everybody's attacking Jews and everybody hates Israel and you need to fight, and the pro-Israel people are going strong, and then there's other people who are on the other side and they're seeing just like dead babies going across their screen all day and things like that. So there's
Yeah.
certainly some of that, but I'm a little bit less certain that the propaganda machine is churning the same way it was. I think they're getting sloppy.
I I don't know. I think I'm of the opposite where I think they're getting so good that they can. It's like we are just in front of your face, and we're still gonna level Palestine in front of your face, and you know that we're doing it. You know, like how they're banning TikTok because of the Palestine content, and I'm pretty sure there's a lot of other stuff on there that they there's other platforms. I'm not even gonna name names because but there was a point I remember I've been on certain platforms. I'm not gonna name names for a long time, and
Is it the tube you?
I remember was a year. I think it was like 2014 where they updated like the terms of service, and a lot of content was removed, and you're not allowed to speak about a lot of things. It was like a whole turning point that you used to see a lot more of this stuff, and now it's all gone. And like you said,
Yeah.
people are fed. I think the algorithm knows us. You know how on Instagram you get those pre-made where you like they put their name, their height, and like what they like and all that stuff, or their favorite song or something like that.
Well, the comment sections too, like I've seen these
Yeah.
videos where they show like if you're a woman or something, and it's like one of these posts about how crappy men are, it'll be like all the comments will be one
Yeah.
way or whatever the post is,
They
like
know how to rope
they,
you in.
yeah,
They
yeah,
even the woke side or the righteous side might not, it might be kind of
yeah, but
righteous.
how
So
much percentage do you need, right? How much percentage do you need to be woken up to then, create that tidal wave? I think it's a lot less. If you look at history, it seems to be somewhere between 3 to 5%.
yeah, but to get that 3 to 5% truly is a hard task. It's a hard task because even the people that are what one would consider woken up are a tad bit off. So the tad bit off part makes that little misalignment cause.
Right. Froze up a little bit there, but
Said,
I guess. Mhm.
you said earlier there's even legislation being passed to prevent people, the people that those legislators serve, from knowing things. That in itself, that's that the consciousness, the 5% is people that understand that we're under attack
Right,
in a
right.
bigger way that anybody might be even imagining, and that's on purpose, and that's through time, through
Yeah.
like,
I
you
also
know,
think there's no way to reliably measure how many people are like quote unquote woken up, like not woken up and like, I don't know, think that Trump is gonna be your savior, woken up or something. Like, no
even that's
offense to
under
my
attack though. You
right.
saw what
Well,
you saw with the Twitter files that how can we even know about each other if they're like shadow banning us all over the place? You know what I mean?
right. Well, that's what I'm saying. There's no reliable measure to like
Yeah.
see who's truly woken up. I don't think that until I think that there's a lot of activity that's going on in a decentralized fashion, and the pure nature of it is that it cannot be captured by TV. The revolution will not be televised, not because the mainstream doesn't want it televised. It won't be televised because the nature of it does not allow it to be televised, right? Because
Oh
what
wow.
we're doing is so organic, it's so local, it's so genuine, it's so natural. And that's why I have hope, right? That's why
Clip
I
that.
have to be optimistic.
Clip that. Clip that. The thing is, I know the revolution is gonna come, and I also do have hope. I don't want to come across like I don't because of what I'm saying. It's more like I'm saying what I'm saying to get to it. You know, it's not, the things that I'm saying are not always gonna be pretty because we need to get to it. I'm just gonna say how it is. Unless we get to it, the revolution won't happen. It just won't happen. We have to sit at the table, be able to have realistic, not propaganda talking points. They fed us this. Look, they're playing us. These people are playing us over there. These, can we talk? Let's talk
Right.
because kids are dying. You know, that's very important. That's an important factor. As a parent, I would be churning in my stomach if I saw what was going on in America and how this, like, if that happened to my kid is on the line, no. Y'all better
I
talk.
know. Well,
Y'all better
that's
talk.
the problem is that I guess they've convinced sort of that's how Jews feel as well too, right? They're
Yeah.
like, well, it's either their kids or my kids. And I mean, I don't think that's really a
No.
realistic perception of the situation. I think there's a whole power imbalance and all of that. But I want to get to election 2024 because I think that this is going to be a big issue in the election, or maybe it's not. Maybe because all of the top candidates have the same opinion, then it doesn't really matter and it's going to get canceled out. But it's like it seems like if Biden solved this issue and he was able to bring all of the hostages home and have a big conference with them on the White House lawn and they were working towards a peace process, I feel like that would be a really, really good thing for him for the election, right? And then on the other hand, it feels like we have Trump playing both sides, where sometimes you'll get him saying like, "Oh yeah, like we got to wrap this thing up," like, and then other times you'll be like, "I'm gonna be so much more, pro-Israel than Biden. Biden is basically Team Hamas these days." So I have a clip here. Like we all know what Biden's policy is, but I want to share that clip. I don't know if you saw it. It was a couple weeks ago now, where Biden was at the UFC match, and one of these really big UFC players at the end of his match, he went up to Trump and he was like, "Listen, I need you to stop the war." So here, I'll let the clip play for itself, and it's Khabib. who
Oh, so
apparently.
you misspoke earlier. Biden was not at the UFC match.
No, I didn't mean Biden. I meant Trump. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Biden was not at the
I
UFC
was
match.
like, what?
Trump was at the UFC
All
match.
right.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Okay, so this is what he says. Like Khabib goes, I know you're gonna stop all this Palestinian war, and Trump says, we're gonna stop it. I'm gonna stop it. It's only 10 seconds.
Thank you, man. I know. I don't know. I got a little girl. And I gotta see. I think this could be it. Well,
right. So here he's like, oh yeah, we're gonna stop it. We're gonna stop it. And he's said other things. I think he had another interview a few months ago where he was like, yep, it's time for the Israelis to wrap it up. But then even more recently than that, or was it more? Let me see what the date is on this before pretty sure this was June 12th. So this was today, right? This is today. It's being reported how Trump charges Biden is abandoning Israel after comments about not supplying weapons for the Rafah invasion, which I don't even think that reporting is true. I'm pretty sure that America aided and abetted that whole thing.
There's something about this article. I'm not gonna hold you.
Right. Former President Donald Trump accused Joe Biden of abandoning Israel in an interview with Spectrum News on Thursday. So again, Biden said he wouldn't supply the country with these, he set like this red line about invading Rafah, but we're seeing the invasion unfold and we're seeing American weapons being used. And so Trump is going around saying things like, if you're Jewish and you vote for Biden, shame on you. It's like one of these you ain't black moments that Biden had, except like Trump is like, you ain't Jewish.
I want to see that. But yeah, that does remind me of when he told Charlemagne,
right, yeah,
you ain't black. If you don't vote for me, that's crazy.
So what's going on here, right, is do you think that, one hand we have Trump, he's in front of this UFC player and he's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna stop the war, and then a week later he's out here being like, Biden's not pro-Israel enough, and if I were in office, I'd be way more pro-Israel. Like, what's going on here?
I've heard Trump's various takes on this issue. I don't like it, but I understand what he's trying to do. He feels like if he supports Israel with full force on getting Hamas, then the conflict will be over. He wants to get it done immediately. He wants to send the best teams and whatever to get specifically to neutralize Hamas. I don't.
So do you mean like a more targeted special operations,
right,
rather than like this indiscriminate bombing that we're seeing?
Yeah, he doesn't want to do it. He doesn't. Trump is. I do believe Trump when he is about people not dying. It's just I'm gonna be completely honest. I'm gonna say something very direct to the viewers here. Biden is not gonna do anything. So there is literally, in my opinion, no point in even having any hope that he is going to do anything, because the man, it can't even think straight. And that's just the truth. That's just what's going on. And he's very corrupt. Very, very, very extremely corrupt. He's a career politician. Politicians get better at politics. And what is politics? It's always corruption. So just take Biden away. Now, Trump being in the White House, I think he's going to do what it takes to stop that issue as soon as it can be stopped. Even if it means turning his back on Israel when he's in there. He doesn't know what's going on until he's in there.
I mean, all right, I'll give a few points to rebut you. I'm actually going to be doing a debate on Trump in general, not specifically on this war, but why I don't think Trump is really any different than Biden, or, actually, I don't want to say worse than Biden, but at least just as bad. So when Trump was in office, he was extremely pro-Israel. His campaign, and is especially even more now that he has so many bills from lawsuits and having to fight these charges and stuff, he's being really propped up by Zionist money. But when he was previously in office, he moved the capital from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. I'm sorry, he moved the U.S. embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. And he also did the Abraham Accords, which Biden has continued to do. And so the Abraham Accords are where he's going around and making deals with all these Middle Eastern countries and trying to sidestep the Palestinian issue. And then Netanyahu basically went to the UN, right, the end of September and was like, screw you, Palestinians. We're making deals with everybody else, and we're just going to leave you to wither away in perpetuity until we can, quietly ethnically cleanse you. Now, that obviously it's not happening so quietly now, but I do blame Trump a lot for setting up this situation as it's happening now. Also, Trump isn't more peaceful. I think, like, rhetorically, he puts up this good front of being like anti-war, like he didn't start any new wars. But if you look at the record when he was in office, he dropped more, or he did more drone attacks in his first 2 years, and by, I think, over 1,000 more in his first 2 years than Biden, or than who was before him, Obama, did in 8 years, right? He propped up Saudi's war on Yemen. He killed Khashoggi.
Oh yeah.
So like there's so many ways that, again, it just seems like, he is good at rhetorically speaking to the audience that he's in front of. He's in front of Khabib. Oh yeah, I'm gonna stop the war. He's in front of a little bit broader of an audience and right now the media is like, all pro-Israel. So, oh yeah, we're gonna, I'm way more pro-Israel than Biden, like, so I feel like he just says what he feels like the audience wants to hear when they want to hear it, and he's just going to keep going along with the program. It doesn't matter if it's, covered in blue like the Democrats or covered in red like the Republicans. Both parties play for the same team, and it's not our team.
Yeah, I see your point, and that's why I'm not a Trump supporter. I'm not a supporter of any president that steps in the White House and continues the drone programs at all. So the minute that Trump stepped inside the White House, I wasn't a supporter of him. I guess where I was kind of getting at is more, there's not even, there's no discussion with Biden. There's nothing.
Right.
There's no
Trump is persuadable. You feel like he's a little bit persuadable.
I feel like Trump made a lot of mistakes his first presidency. He played the role of a president that was already built because of the presidents before. There's already a way to be a president, and Trump kind of broke that way, but he was the first line of breaking it. So he still had to play a president, and I don't think under a Trump presidency would this have happened. In my opinion, I don't think he would have. Well, what I say, I digress because it was happening during the a Trump presidency. I just feel like now with the political uproar, he would have addressed it more immediately. This guy can't address anything. There's no addressing of anything. So.
All right. DJ L wants us to know that Trump stopped the war exercises around North Korea, and that was reinstated under Biden. Okay, so maybe there's a little bit.
There's stuff in there. There's stuff in there, but the thing is, what we're really speaking towards is he doesn't have a morally sound record, and that's kind of
morals and Trump in the same sentence.
Yeah, like that's not what I'm expecting. But what I do think is he has he does have a humanity to him, and I think he does care about people being murdered and killed. It's just so much that a president can do in the current system of being a president. I think him coming in again now especially if he picks Vivek as a VP.
Yeah, but
It's
he wasn't
over.
even on the short list. I don't think
You
Vivek was on the
oh
short list. You didn't
Vivek
see
is
it?
not on the short list.
No, it was like Tim Scott. It was Byron Donalds.
That's
I think
unfortunate.
there was another black guy on there too. I think he had like
But I think
three
I
black
heard Vivek.
guys.
I've heard Vivek talk about it, and I think he just doesn't want to do that. I think he's like, let me just run it. Now that people know me, I'm a political figure. I'm gonna go back to work, and then like I'm gonna run again on the same principles, and they're gonna be already established. It's kind of like he's building himself up because he's young. He's taking
Trump is not young.
No, I'm saying Vivek.
Oh, Vivek. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Vivek. He
He's
was
his
saying
pit
that he
bull
kind of
though.
didn't want to do it.
He is his pit bull because like I was at the Libertarian National Convention and Vivek was there like basically
Yeah, but
being
I don't think
Trump's
he
like
wants to
spokes guy.
do those jobs right now.
Maybe he'll get a cabinet position or something or whatever. I mean, he's obviously a big business guy, and big business guys, they always need to have good government connections because, we like to talk about all of these people on welfare, but the biggest welfare recipients are these huge businesses like Elon Musk. I mean, he's gotten hundreds of thousands, if not hundreds of millions of dollars, if not even more than that have helped support his businesses and grants and funding and all types of stuff. So
I
all
think
these billionaires,
the biggest thing we're gonna see in this next election, most prominent things I think we're gonna see is really what's on the line right now. And what's on the line is like it's really going to be the next election is going to be probably the most important election in the history of the United States.
Oh man, they say that about everyone.
What's on the line is the FBI, the CIA, and the DOJ.
Trump wants the FBI still there. All right, listen, we're going to have to get into a Trump debate another time. I'm actually going to be doing a Trump debate over on my boy Greg's channel on June 24th or 25th or something. I'll make the announcement, but I'm going to be debating against people where I'm basically like me and one other guy against two other people where they're like pro-Trump and we're basically like never Trump, I guess. And I was not a never Trumper the first time. I was actually I was always one of those people who got like put in the corner for like defending Trump because I'd be like, no, that's not what he said. That's just what the media said he said. Yeah. But I've never been a super Trump fan. I try to give credit where credit's due, but I'm just at the point where I'm just, the left and the right, they all play for the same team. It doesn't matter who gets in the office. We really need to keep our attention super local and, building up our own systems to either challenge, put some pressure for the establishment to like at least behave a little bit better, or, they'll just render themselves so irrelevant and then we'll be ready to step in. But I really appreciate you coming through to have this conversation. I have your Instagram linked down below, which I know is a sage called Sunshine. Just let the people know anything that you have coming up, any other channels where they can follow you, plug your stuff.
Okay, so I'm an artist based in Connecticut. I do all kind of media. I do visual arts, photography, music. I've done music for 17 years. I'm kind of like an OG artist.
And he's dope. Like his music is legit good and he's very versatile in like rapping, singing, producing, being the videographer. So definitely check him out. Yeah. What else? Anything else? You got something come up? Any shows or anything?
A good friend of mine, Indigo the Fae, is dropping a project that I support. I support a bunch of artists in my community. Indigo the Fae, Fairy Bites. I want people to check that out because that's a good friend of mine that comes out on Friday. I have a project coming out called My Heart Still Beats. It's probably coming out in the next 2 months. And then I have a show for Seeing Sounds Fest in New Haven on July 3rd, where I'm going to be playing beats and performing, and we're doing like a boiler room. I don't know if you guys know that on the internet space. Kind of boiler room, playing beats, showcasing some stuff. If anybody's in the Connecticut area, holla at me. And if you're not in the Connecticut area, still holla at me. And I just want to thank you, Steph. Steph, Steph is also, I'm not going to give out too much information, you know what I mean? But Steph is a respected individual in Connecticut as well. Just know that. A good friend of mine that has supported me throughout every rendition of my career. So I really appreciate this. This is like a great full circle moment. And we and you could do this for hours.
Yes, we could. And I'm going to have to definitely pull up to that June 3rd event. So, you know,
Yeah.
send me that information. I appreciate you. I appreciate everybody out there. Make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. And you already know what it is. Think free, live free, and give all the glory.